pjnet.tv. It is 9 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States. If you're watching this and that's what time it is, you're watching it live. If that's not the time it is, you're probably seeing this recorded somewhere. We do stream to Facebook, we stream to Twitter, and we stream to YouTube, and wherever you're watching it, we're glad you're here. We have a first-time guest standing by in our chat room, and we will start our first-time guest is standing by in the green room. We have other people waiting in the chat room. I'll get it right. Starting the countdown to Studio 39 now, folks. Okay, well, good evening. Welcome to pjnet.tv. I really botched up that. No, our guest is not waiting in the chat room. But there are a lot of people in the chat room. So, if you're watching this live on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, we're certainly glad you have joined us, and we hope to bring you some uplifting and encouraging stuff. But we have a fellowship in our live chat room that is the best kept secret on the internet. There are people over there right now waiting to meet you. You'll make some new friends. We've made friends there for life, so I invite you to hop on over to pjnet.tv, and the very first button on the page says video and chat. Click that one, and then you can watch the same thing over there with some new friends you'll find. Well, folks, I always love introducing first-time guests. Now, shout out to Ben Cooper for helping make the connection and the arrangements to have our guest. This is going to be an enlightening 20 minutes for me, and I can't wait to find out more from the authority on foster care. Not because she has a PhD in it, but because she has experienced it and survived it. Genevieve Traversy is here, and foster care is your story.
Yes, it's my passion.
I am ignorant on the subject, Genevieve. I have heard mostly horror stories about foster care. And when I read your article, that it's been published in several places, but you confirmed and affirmed some of the horror stories that I had heard. You experienced that, you lived through it, but you know what? You look like you turned out okay. Take us back and walk us through.
Looks can be deceiving. No, so thank you for having me first and foremost. So yes, foster care is my passion, and you might not realize how much you actually do know about foster care. But I would love to share my story and what I do now. So I'll take you way back. I know we only have 20 minutes, so I'll try to make it fit. I was born in Massachusetts. I was born into poverty. And I had two older brothers. When I was 3, my biological father left my mother, so that left us homeless, and my mother wasn't able to care for my older brothers and I anymore. So that's where it all started. So actually, that was my very first memory too. And I ask people that sometimes, like, what's your first memory? And usually it's a traumatic memory or an extremely happy memory. Mm-hmm. So it's very few that it's random thoughts of their first memory. I know you're thinking now, what was my first memory?
We're not going to talk about it.
So I was 3, and I remember we were in the projects, and that's where we had lived, but we were at my aunt's place, and my mom was crying in the corner, and 2 men came to the door. They looked like men in black. And so that was my very first experience of being removed. I was very confused, and then, the first home I ever went to had several children. I think that was before they capped how many children you can have. I mean, there was a bunk bed and at least 3 bedrooms. So, so that was how I became a foster child, or a child in foster care. And that's another thing, even I'm trying to reword and relearn is try not to call a child a foster child. You say a child in foster care. So, um, and so then I was back and forth with my mom until I was 11. And then I never went back with my mom. So back and forth with her, I was able to see also my biological brothers who were 10 and 12 years older than me. And this is my first time sharing this actually, because I don't share this in articles. So, one of those brothers, um, had hurt me in different ways, and that's took an innocence from me, and that's where you hear those devastating stories of foster care, but it was actually with my biological. um, and then my other brother was like a father figure. He was 12 years older than me. um, and so, um, after 11, I suppressed that memory though for a long time, and it didn't come out until I was a teenager later on, and that happens a lot with trauma. So after 11, I was in more homes. And at 12 years old, I was told by my social worker, who didn't mean to tell me in spite, but just to make me aware. So when you grow up in foster care, it makes you grow up a lot quicker. You don't have the luxury of feeling like you're a child that can just play and relax and enjoy, playing with a ball. Like, it's always fear and worry. I always had a grocery bag, like up there we had a market basket. Down here we have Food Line, and there's Walmart's everywhere. I'll say Walmart. You have a Walmart bag, with your clothes in it. So that was always in the corner. Just like when you go to hotels, sometimes you're like, why should I unpack my suitcase?
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave in a day or two. That was how I felt. So the social worker told me that I was considered unadoptable. So unadoptable, um, was the moment that pierced my heart and changed my perspective. Because I had held on to hope, even though my clothes were in the corner. I held on to hope that I would go back and forth. I mean, go back to my mom or get adopted. And since my mother was MIA, missing in action, again, they couldn't find her because usually she was either in a house, a crack house, or in a halfway house or a shelter. So at 12, I just figured, what's the point? So at that point, I became very, what do they call it in the South? Wide open. I just didn't care anymore. I just, I got into fights all the time at school. I started being promiscuous. I got into drugs. I even got my first tattoo at 12. And I'm like,
Back before it was a thing.
and before it was even popular,
Yeah.
yes. And I got my nose pierced at 14. So,
Oh, I like that.
yeah, my tongue pierced at 14. I just did everything, because to numb the pain, and
Mhm.
the tattoo I got at 12 was called a jail tattoo. Um, it was with literally homemade ink from cardboard um, and a needle, a sewing needle. So I should have learned how to sew, but never learned that. So after going through all that, I became pregnant at 15. And that was a wake up call for me because um, part of me wanted so badly to find love. I wanted to find love in all the wrong places. Um, and I remember when they told me I was pregnant at Planned Parenthood, and um, they offered me another choice and an option. And I remember running out of that place, holding my belly, like promising my son I was going to protect him forever. So that moment, I promised that I'm going to change my life. So I actually got a job that week at Dunkin' Donuts, my first job. And yeah, so I gave birth to a healthy baby boy 10 days after I turned 16. And I graduated with honors. graduated high school with an almost 3-year-old by my side. And I was the first not only to graduate high school, but to graduate college. And I felt like I had something to prove, though, at that point. Like, I wanted to break the cycle so bad that because one of my foster homes, that was one of the people I wanted to prove a point to as well. They used to tell me I was going to be a junkie, just like my mother. And so I had had 16 foster homes. Not all of them were bad, but this one was one of those really bad ones you don't want to ever hear about or see. Or it's like those movies where they would make me scrub the floors with a toothbrush. And, it was the only house that I had ever considered taking my own life. Which I want to put a plug out there. It's Suicide Awareness Month this month, and I really want to encourage others that feel like they don't want to keep going, that, there's a purpose. God made you with a purpose. Jeremiah 29:11 says that he made you with an abundant purpose. And I saw that when I had my son, and when I graduated high school, and then I got the 3 degrees after because I wanted to prove a point. So part of going through college, I was able to start a nonprofit, and it was a college project to graduate in my independent and group counseling degree. And so with that degree, you need to do a project along with your internship. So I opened a nonprofit called Lean on Us, and it was for foster children to be able to go places and do things. And we only started it as once a month because the whole purpose was to make children not feel like they're alone. So I partnered up with one other lady. Her name was Crystal. She's no longer alive. And so that's why I make a point to say, suicide awareness. But so we started Lean on Us. Sorry if I rabbit trail. I rabbit trail a lot. I'm trying to
Actually, Genevieve, our guest that's scheduled for 9:30 just sent me a private message. He was so compelled by your story and said to take however long we want to tonight. He is
awesome.
He's a classy guy, I promise you. Yeah. So don't feel like you have to hurry because your story is probably needs to be heard by somebody out there.
Thank you. So we were able to just meet and connect. And at this point, we were in New Hampshire. And New Hampshire is above Massachusetts. For those that don't know, that everyone's.
It's just up north somewhere. That's all that matters. You're from the south, yeah.
It's a 40-minute trip to Boston to New Hampshire. Okay, so it's like here. Oh well, you're not in North Carolina. I'm in North Carolina now.
It's a good place.
It is.
Welcome home. Welcome home.
I do. I love it here. So long story short, I was able to start that nonprofit called Lean on Us, and it was amazing. We were able to make so many connections for foster and adopted families, and I still hold on tight to a lot of those relationships, which was great. I then ended up working for a place called the Upper Room in New Hampshire, working with juvenile diversion youth that came from courts that needed to complete different community service hours. So I would help them coordinate that. And actually, funny, I just came up in my memories. We built a ramp for one of the guys that was wheelchair bound in his house for years. So we were able to do that as one of the community service projects, which was so cool. But fast forward, or you can rewind. I met my husband in high school. We didn't go to the same high school, but I met him when I actually got lost going to the beach with my foster sister, and my biological brother that I was close to let me borrow his car. And it was like a week before school started, and I met my now husband when we were teenagers, went to prom together. That was the first night I told him I loved him. And we got married, had 4 children. And I don't want to go into the whole long adoption story, but we became foster parents and fostered our little girl, who is now 4, when she came at 1.5 years. And we adopted her when she was 2.5. And now we foster. We just had 2 extras in our home, and we try to only do respite right now for our sanity. Respite means short term. So I like to be the in between, um, loving home so they don't have to go out of school or over state
Right.
lines. So that's what I do now, as a, at home. And then for work, I am a foster care recruiter full time for a place called Lutheran Family Services. And my job literally is telling people my story and going different places, going to churches and telling, speaking and telling them the facts of, we have over 300,000 children in foster care right now, and 100,000 of those children are waiting for adoption. So that's what I get to do now, is help find foster parents for these beautiful children that end up in foster care. So that's me.
That's a lot, Genevieve. Let me try to go back and process some of what you've shared. Um, your life was a wreck, literally a train wreck.
Mhm.
And if that weren't bad enough, something devastating happened when you were 12. You were told that you were not adoptable. Because even though your life was a train wreck, you had that sliver of hope that
Mhm.
you hung on to, that somehow, somewhere, somebody would bring stability into your life. And now the roof falls in on you, and you're told. And I take it that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that after 12 years they just give up on you. Is that, I mean,
So, after, see, they explained it to me this way, and obviously, no one's going to tell a child that now, but after 12 years old, hormones start to kick in,
you're acting.
and um, a lot of people want that baby. Unfortunately, that's just, it seems easier, and there is a lot of trauma. And I still am overcoming trauma. Um, and I can tell you so many stories that I've suppressed and coming out now, but God is so good in healing that. And honestly, not until you realize that, or not until I realized that I was adopted through Christ, I was always adopted, but not until I realized that can you heal. So it's beautiful. And that's why I love what I do too. There's girls that I mentor and life coach, because that's the whole purpose. I want them to know that they don't have to hold on to that hurt anymore. They can give it to God, and He can truly heal them.
So around 12, as the sap
Yes.
is rising, as you were indicating,
Yes. And
you're basically told you're a throwaway. I mean,
mhm.
that must have been emotionally just devastating. So your initial reaction was to act out and rebel in every way you could think of.
Mhm.
Uh, some of the more innocent manifestations were nose rings and tattoos, but
Mhm.
some of the less were promiscuity that I presume led to a pregnancy.
Mhm.
Okay, you go into Planned Parenthood and they suggest a way to solve it. Now, I wanted to ask you this: if you didn't have a problem, there any inconsistency in your own mind that the reason you're sitting in this room is a problem with morality, but yet you left out of there saying, I'm going to have this baby? Was that a moral judgment on your part, or was that a turning point for you to get back at those that said, basically, you're worthless? You were going to prove to them that they were wrong.
So not deciding about my child, that was the education part, to prove everyone wrong. I wanted to succeed in that way. For my son, I wanted to break the cycle. That was not proving anyone wrong. I wanted to break that cycle. And um, what I found out later, actually, it was just last year, through ancestry and finding, my biological family through that, is my biological grandmother and my great grandmother both grew up in orphanages. And my grandmother couldn't take care of my mother either. So it went back
Oh,
at least three
three
generations.
generations.
So this is this is a cycle that
Okay,
needed
so
to be.
this was some inner strength that, in spite of, I mean, you were pretty beat up
I was.
emotionally.
And literally, I didn't share that, but I literally was beat up daily
Well,
at that
yeah, I didn't mean it literally, but it turns out that was literally true also. But you were, let me say this, you were beaten down. You were
point.
beaten down, but something inside of you rose up.
Right. Hmm.
Some strength was down there, and you rose up, and you basically bootstrapped yourself into a relatively normal, no, well, in fact, in many ways, it's above normal. You excelled in so many ways. Where does Christ fit in this transition from beat down, hopeless, rejection, promiscuity, unwed pregnancy, the strength within you? You said, I'm going to turn myself around. Where did Christ come into your life?
So I always say that he was there even when I didn't realize it. And I think a lot of us can say that, like, but God, like, and I always say BC, before Christ, because I mean, there was moments I was in the hospital with stab wounds from some of the guys I chose to be with at 12 and 13 years old, and stitches in my lip. So even in my pregnancy, being beat with fireplace pokers, kicked down 3 flights of stairs. So even through that, I feel like Christ was there. Like, I feel like I always joke with my kids that their angels are on crutches, but my angels were literally in wheelchairs on crutches, like protecting me. But I didn't give my whole being. I didn't have a relationship with God until I was in my mid 20s. And that's a whole nother story. But but yes, till my mid 20s. And then life just, it was a whole different life after my veil was lifted. Before that, it was survival overcomer mode
Yeah,
for my
that's what I was
child.
trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
over survival mode, that mama bear mode. But
Okay.
then when you throw Christ in that, it's just, it's beautiful, a beautiful, not ending, because we all have trials. So I can't say a happily ever after, but
Well, you got a lot. Hopefully, you have a lot left in front of you,
oh yeah.
Genevieve. This story that you're sharing could someday be a book, maybe.
Yes, I keep I have a lot of requests. I've wrote for articles and different places, but and I tell my story a lot. But what I do write is devotionals for YA, young adults,
Hmm.
and the devotionals I write is to hopefully inspire others, and it's short devotionals followed by an exercise, because you got to work your soul and your mind, but also your body. We talked about that before we started.
Yeah, getting
So,
there. Yeah.
so yeah, it's the devotionals are hopefully to do that. But I would love to be able to make a children's book from that as well. But also, I have so many different ideas. But I was told that a memoir might be too much, or too confusing for not a no name, but someone that a lot of people don't know. So that's
Where
where
did the personal trainer come in?
so I tapped into that about, let me see, 8 years ago. Well, actually, Zumba, I got certified 11 years ago. It was just an outlet to release some stress. I
Right.
never wanted to go on any medication for, depression or anxiety. So I turned to exercise to
One
help
of
with that.
the, I'm glad you brought that up because I recommend whatever, all kind of physical activity for anger management.
Hmm.
Go get angry at the weights.
Yes.
Divert that anger to a socially acceptable where nobody gets hurt. And it works. And if you get hot and sweaty enough, it actually, and there's the endorphins, and there's a lot of health benefits
Right.
to moving around. I'm not asking everybody to get in the shape they were in when they were 20, but at the same time, just move around, do
Right.
something. The thought approached me or occurred to me today: when you don't move around, it gets harder and harder to do anything.
Hmm.
But once you overcome that and you start moving around, it gets easier and easier to do hard things.
Right.
It's a
It's
real
emotional.
rush, folks. it's
It is.
it's
It's
and I recommend it. But Genevieve, your story, I hope that in sharing your story, not only here but you share it other places. I didn't know. I knew it was bad. I didn't have this, but I had no idea. And the notion that they would, at puberty, at such a sensitive time, just give up. I mean, gosh, at a time when a teenager needs that parenting, that mentoring, I mean, you were thrown under the bus, and
mm.
and apparently that's just the way it is. Um, have any thoughts about guardian ad litem?
Oh, I can't add anything to my list right now, but maybe in the future. But yeah, Guardian, the GALs. I mean, I grew up and they were so good to me. They were the ones I would look forward to talking to. Sometimes they were the only ones I could talk to. So I definitely think that they're great, maybe in the future. But out of my 16 homes, I had maybe even more guardian ad litems, and it's hard because the rotation is so frequent.
Well, and the idea is you can't build a relationship with them because it's temporary. It's gosh, gosh, Genevieve, you're quite the overcomer. you know,
God is good.
I don't know how old
Well,
you are, but we need people like you in the Marine Corps. We,
I need to find a babysitter first. I think I'm too old for that too.
well, Genevieve, thanks for sharing your story, and thank you, Ben Cooper, for finding this testimony and making it possible for Genevieve to share it here on pjnet.tv. Thanks so much, Genevieve. I hope that God continues to work in your life the way He has now, and just keep doing what you're doing because we're awful proud of you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, folks, there you see the view from the camera, one of many cameras above the studios, the Eagle's Nest here at pjnet.tv. In just a few moments, J.D. Winninger will be, uh, yeah, over there in a different studio. We're gonna abandon this one and set up a new studio. Before I leave, I don't want you to touch the dial. I want you to stay and listen to J.D. He's coming. He comes anyway at the bottom of the hour, which it already is, but he'll be a few minutes late because he wanted to give his time to Genevieve. Before I get back, I want you to think about two things. I want you to ask yourself two questions. It may take you longer than that, but here they are. What is the boldest thing that you have ever done for Jesus Christ? And the second question is, how long ago was that? It's my desire that none of us would ever be satisfied with either answer.